In this video I will show you how much the Porsche Boxster 987 loses per year and if the values bottomed. What's up YouTube and welcome to a new video. Now for many the Porsche Boxster 987 is their first proper sports car. And there are many good reasons for this. The 987 follows the same formula as the 986. A car which was already hugely successful. However, you need to be a little bit careful when you are buying a 987. The oldest cars in the market are now already 15 years old and they are not completely trouble-free. Now there might be also an upside to this older age. It could be so that the values are completely bottomed or might even go up. And that is what we are about to find out in this video. I will namely guide you through the Boxster 987 market from a value perspective. And all of that in a data-driven way with the following steps. In the first step we will have a look at the Boxster 987 market and I will show you some general numbers. And after we got to know the market, we will have a look at the depreciation per year and per 1000 miles driven. In the third step I will show you then how the 987 market relates to the 718 and 981 market. And in the fourth step I will show you how it scores on the depreciation leaderboard. This video is by the way part of a larger video series in which I analyzed the Boxster market. I started with the 718 and then worked my way down to the 981 and now then the 987. And the links to the other videos you can find in the description of this video. So check them out if you haven't done so already. Now then, the 987 market. You can see that we have the model year on the horizontal axis and the price on the vertical axis. You can also see that the market is split by model type. Now in total there are 102 cars for sale and that makes the market for a Boxster 987 quite small. The most popular cars are of course the S model and the base model with respectively 36 and 53 cars for sale. And what is interesting here is that the median price for these two model types doesn't differ. In other words, the S no longer goes for a premium. Now besides these two model types, there's also one limited edition for sale, 8 Spyders and 4 RS60 Spyders. And I'm not going to cover all of the differences between those model types. If you're interested in that, then I suggest a Google search. Now then, before we move on to the depreciation numbers, I need to point out a few things. First, the Boxster 987 was facelifted in 2009. And with this facelift, many of the reliability issues were addressed. It also updated the look of the car, and personally, I think that this was a big improvement. And both of these changes are also reflected in the market. You can see for example that the base 987.2 cars are on average $10,500 more expensive than the base 987.1 models. So when we look at the depreciation numbers, we need to take into account that the 987 market exists essentially out of two markets. Now the second thing which we need to take into account here are the number of data points. You can see that for the RS60 Spyder, the limited edition, the Spyder and the 987.2S, we don't have enough of them. And therefore, we can't say anything reliable about the depreciation. We will then also drop those and have a look at the depreciation numbers for the 987.1 base, S and the 987.2 base. And the depreciation curves for those cars will be appearing now on your screen. Before we continue though, please remember to support the channel by smashing that like button. Let's cover them one by one and we will start with the base 987.2. The depreciation for this car sits at $1,000 per year. And please note that this is an average number. And what is important to point out here is the green shaded area. This area shows us the uncertainty in the estimate. And the larger the area, the larger the uncertainty. And you can see that it is quite big there. And especially for the 2018 and 2012 models. And practically this means that the actual depreciation might deviate from the $1,000 per year which I showed you earlier. In fact, I'm quite confident that you can get it very close to zero if you find a car with the right price. So what about the 987.1 base? Well first, have a look at the huge price break here. There's a gap of around $8,500 between the generations. Also have a look at the slope of the curve. It is non-existent and shows a depreciation of $0. Or in other words, the model year is no longer important for the price of a 987.1 Boxster. And I think that this is a fair estimation. We can see first of all that the shaded area surrounding the curve is relatively small, showing little uncertainty. Furthermore, also the mileage distribution among the model years is somewhat similar, allowing us to compare the market from a model year perspective. Alright. So what about the S version then? Well, from the slope of the depreciation curve, it seems to be so that the depreciation is very high. However, also here, the shaded area is quite large, showing us that there's a lot of uncertainty in the estimate. And this is mainly caused by these cars over here, which are priced way above the market average. These are the cars which have a mileage way below the average and are therefore priced higher. You can even see that they are priced in line with a 997.2 base. The slope of the curve is therefore not driven by the model year, but by the mileage. And if we look at the cars which have a mileage around the average, then we would also see here that the depreciation is extremely low. And the fact that the low mileage cars are priced so much higher here than the other cars is also an indication by itself that the market bottomed. Typically, when the market bottomed out, you see that model year is no longer driving the price and that the mileage becomes one of the key drivers. And since the mileage is so important, let's have a look at the depreciation per 1000 miles driven. You can see that we have now the mileage on the horizontal axis instead of the model year, and that the price is still displayed on the vertical axis. Also, note that we are again only looking at the 997.1S base and 997.2 base. Now you can see that all of the cars depreciate more or less at the same rate of $100 per 1000 miles driven. And this is a very good score. Furthermore, this graph also reveals that the S models still go for a premium over the base models. For the higher mileage cars, this premium is only small, but it increases to around $5,000 for the low mileage cars. And this is something which we couldn't observe from the previous graph. There it namely appeared to be the case that for some model years the S and the base models were priced the same. However, when we compare the 997.2 base to the 997.1S, then we can see that for the low mileage cars there is a significant price overlap. For the same miles and price, you can get a 997.2 base, but also an older S. And to be honest, this is contrary to what I expected. I thought that the 997.2 would always go for a premium due to the significant updates. But to be fair, it is then also so that when the mileage increases, the price overlap disappears. And this might have something to do with the reliability of the 997.1, but this is only speculation. I by the way also checked for the 997.1 base if there was a difference in depreciation for the manual and the coupes, but I couldn't really find anything there. So let's move on. A big question is of course, how do all of these numbers relate to the ones of the previous generations? Let's have a look at that. You can see that we are looking again at the model year versus price perspective, and that I only included the base, the S and GTS models. The Spyders and special editions are excluded. Now this graph shows us a few things. First, you can see that if we would draw an imaginary line through all of the points, that especially the 97.1 cars are at the bottom of the depreciation curve. And this is also confirmed by all of the numbers which we saw earlier. Second, we can see that the price gap of the 97.1 to the 97.2 is huge compared to the other market caps. There is, for example, almost no price gap between the 718 and the 981. And if you want to know why that is the case, then I recommend that you check out the video for those cars by clicking on the pop-up banner over here. And speaking about gaps, there is a significant gap between the 987 and the 981. But this gap is more or less the same size as the one between the 987.1 and 987.2. Relatively, however, the gap is smaller, because the average price points are higher. Okay, so what does this actually tell us? Well, first of all, that the market sees the difference between the 987.1 and 987.2 as being equivalent to the difference between a whole new generation, not just a facelift. And second, it shows us that the 987.2 is really the better car and probably the one you want. Now so far things are looking pretty good for the 997 Boxster. But how good exactly? That we can find out by comparing the depreciation rate to all of the other cars which I've analyzed on the channel. And that I will do by using the depreciation leaderboard. And that is appearing now on your screen, and you can see that we have the age of a car market on the horizontal axis and the relative average depreciation per year on the vertical axis. Now you can probably already spot it, because this point over here is the 97.1 base Boxster market. And as you can see, it scores extremely good. It is one of the youngest cars to reach the 0% mark. Other cars over here are the NA generation of the MX-5, the M3 E46 and the V12 Vantage. And on that note, let's wrap up this video and conclude. I think that the storyline here is clear. The depreciation for the Porsche Boxster 997 is low. Very low. Therefore, you should be able to purchase one without worrying too much about the residual values. However, When you do purchase one, you need to make sure that you have done your research. As you saw from the graphs, there are many sub-markets within the 987 market and prices can fluctuate a lot. Especially the 987.1 base models can go for a discount. And if you Google around, you will find that there are many good reasons for this. Now for you as a potential buyer, this means that you need to decide if you are willing to accept this additional risk which comes with the 987.1 generation. Or that you perhaps want to save an additional $8,000 and get yourself into a 987.2. And with that we arrived at the end of this video. Now if you enjoyed this data-driven way of looking at car markets, please have a look at my channel. Over there you will find many more depreciation analysis, such as analysis for Porsches, McLarens, Ferraris and many more. Now if the car you are looking for is not there, please comment the name of it down below in the comment section. Once there are enough requests for it, I will make a video about it. Also make sure then to subscribe and click on the notification bell so you get notified when your requested analysis goes live. As always, a huge thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a fresh video.